Hi, everyone. This is acyuta-bhava from Nightlight Astrology, and today I'm sitting down with Matthew Kenney, one of my friends, colleagues, someone who is formerly in one of my programs as well, to talk about life as a professional astrologer, some tips and ideas for how those of you out there who are studying astrology and thinking about becoming a professional astrologer might follow that path. So that's what we're going to talk about today. This is a part of a new series that I started to develop the idea for a little while ago, as a way of both talking to students who've been through my courses that I know and have worked with on some level, but who've also gone on to do really cool things, and just get some of their feedback on what making that transition from student to practicing astrologer is like. And hearing a lot of different people say how they did that can be really helpful for those of us out there who are trying to do that. So hopefully this series is useful to you. Anyway, thank you, Matthew, for being here today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, acyuta-bhava, for having me. I appreciate it as well.
Yeah. Now, let's just start by, I like to hear a little bit of the biography. Like, how did you come to astrology? How did it become a more serious thing for you? When did you realize that you really loved it and wanted to do it professionally? Maybe just tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, for sure. I had, first discovered that astrology was more than a sun sign pretty early on in college. And, a lot of my exposure, and I think this is probably true for most people, was to, modern astrology, humanistic astrology, and that kind of thing. But in tandem with my sort of awareness and fascination with astrology that happened early on in college, I was also minoring in classics and majoring in philosophy at university. And I was studying a lot of Plato, especially a lot of the Neoplatonists. I was studying Greek and Sanskrit. And, eventually it dawned on me that there was this thing called classical astrology that, potentially a lot of the students of Plato and a lot of Neoplatonists were, actively engaged in and using. And so, as a, kind of neo-hermeticist, as it were, or an aspiring neo-hermeticist at the time, I found that really interesting. I found that very, very exciting. I really, really liked the idea of a traditional approach in general. The only problem was that, while I was still in college, I didn't really have time to study traditional astrology because it was extremely complex. And you really do need a guide in order to get through that. I found it's very difficult to pick up, this book that I fortunately just happen to have right by me, like Dimitri George's Ancient Astrology, Theory and Practice, and just figure it out. That's not easy to do. You need someone who is already aware of the techniques and who also actively uses them to light your path and guide your way. And the second thing, in addition to not having a teacher, was I just didn't really have the time. Being I was doing some a research fellowship and trying to work on a thesis and all different kinds of things. Then I didn't have time to start, really practicing a complex system of astrology. So, I was very content just reading charts for some of my college friends and kind of blending the keywords of the signs and the planets and sticking it in a house and maybe talking about some aspects if I felt like it. And that sufficed for me for a really, really long period of time. And you fast forward a little bit, and here I am. I'm working. I'm doing some astrology readings. I'm also kind of working some random gigs on the side, and I'm deliberating between going into academia full time and do I want to go the PhD route and just become a researcher and a scholar. And then my fiance, Crystal Hoffman, introduced me to you and into, what you do and what you have to offer. And we start taking your course together. And that was the first step in a series of steps that got me to becoming a full-time practicing astrologer, someone who, wasn't just kind of reading charts for people off by donation, but someone who, I decided this is what I actually want to do. I'm diving in full focus. This is where I want to go with my life. Mm-hmm. And it solved It's all my question because I wasn't in college anymore. I didn't need to, like, I wasn't studying a bunch of other different things, so I had the time. And then like you came in as a teacher who, were actually using techniques. You could show me concretely how something, even like a relatively simple technique like house dispositorship actually works, and use it in a chart to make it pop. And that's so different, like on the one hand, like being able to read theoretically, like, okay, Mars rules Aries and you have Aries on the ninth house cusp. Mars has something to do with like teachers and higher learning and higher education. And then there's looking at 10 different charts and seeing how that actually shows up. And like that kind of like concrete, grounded example type knowledge was really what, got me excited about, and like I could see how this was actually applicable and approachable, like, and you could use it.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, it is. I think that's a really key piece. And it's something that I've said a bunch. It's not just my program, because, my program is rooted in expressing and explaining things, both primarily in terms of how I've learned to put them into use in practice with people, right? But also because I had teachers who helped me work my way through the jungle of all of the material. And especially if you're going to study traditional astrology, Hellenistic astrology, even, Indian astrology, those approaches are more technical, and you have to know not only a bunch of sort of rules and procedures and theories and techniques, but you have to know how and when to use them artfully. And you need to, having that experience is something that most people are going to need a teacher or a few teachers that they admire, that they can see explain the theory and watch in practice. And that part is really how astrology was taught for thousands of years as well. So today, a lot of people find themselves just kind of digging around on the internet. What I'm curious about from your story is, I mean, it's really cool, by the way, that you and Crystal took the class together. I've had some couples over the years take the class together and learn and study together, and that's always cool to see.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun studying the material together, reading through the same books and all that kind of thing. It was a great romantic bonding experience.
Yeah,
we're two super nerdy people.
Yeah, and super cool people too. I think you guys are awesome. Yeah. Anyway, so at what I'm curious to know, because I think it's important to help people identify, how do I know if I have a calling? How do I know if you get bit by the bug, you really love something, but it's another thing to go, this is what I want to, kind of dedicate my life to as a full-time practicing astrologer, or even a part-time practicing astrologer. Could you go into maybe the psychology of some of the moments or the period of time where you said, I love this? What was it that made you realize, I love this, I want to do this, compared to lots of other things? You're obviously a very talented person. You have a lot of knowledge and abilities. You could go the PhD route, you were saying. What is it about astrology that really grabbed you?
So what it was about astrology that really, really grabbed me was the application of a philosophy and a worldview, and even a spiritual practice into everyday life. Seeing that was sort of, so, for me, it was kind of the whole process of like realizing that this was kind of my calling, was a slow journey. I didn't wake up one morning and be like, bam, this is it. It was a kind of more of a slow burn, but that was like the first spark that awoke, within my heart, or like my spirit remembering something. Even like it uses sort of like a Platonic epistemology, like my spirit remembering something from the past, even, and it was unshakable. It, like, there was just this passion that slowly grew and grew and grew and grew. And I can almost describe it like in sort of emotive, like more some even somatic terms, is like something that I could feel myself like leaning into, or almost even surrendering into. And then, what happened was that more and more opportunities started opening up around me. there seemed to be more and more signs from, outside of myself, even that this is something perhaps even more than me. This is kind of where I'm supposed to be going. And, because I have a lot of, I put a lot of time into spiritual practice and this kind of thing. It's hard for me to sort of escape seeing those things in those terms. It's hard for me to divorce it and just put it in more of like a mechanical or abstract, like this was the time, or for me, I'm a Capricorn, but like this kind of thing was not very dollars and cents. It was very it felt very spiritual. It was like a slow spiritual awakening or flowering.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think for people who are watching this and they're curious, if they have that, I would encourage them to, put aside the shoulds and the should nots, put aside the discursive mind as much as you can, because, ultimately astrology is a spiritual practice. Like it works in a very, very mechanical way, and you can use it to, you can use it as a career, but that doesn't mean it's not like some kind of communication with something more than just the material. And you really need to honor and acknowledge that when it comes to asking yourself if this is your path, if this is your calling. Do you feel an excitement? Do you feel the spark coming alive when you start to think about astrology? Do you feel emotionally fulfilled? Do you feel like you're doing something that is right, and you're giving back in a way that is more than yourself? Do you feel like you've put one foot into the other side? These are the questions that I would start asking yourself. And if it's more like just maybe perhaps a passing hobby or an interest or something that you just want to be conversant in, then I think as you try and sort of explore into yourself and you feel into it, you that spark, you'll find that maybe it's not there, or it's not super central. But if you feel, and even if you've just been studying for a little bit, and you feel this deep yes to those questions, then I think that, you could be a burgeoning astrologer, and welcome to the family.
I love that. In particular, that idea of welcome to the family, because it is that feeling. People get bit by the bug and you really like astrology, you take it in, but some of the symptoms are exactly as you described, asking those questions to yourself. And then I think some of the other symptoms that I've noticed that I would throw in would be, people ask when they want to take my class, how long will I have to take outside of class? And I find that the people people ask that question. It's a very reasonable question, but I find that it's the people who are not on any kind of quota. They just can't help themselves. They just can't help but read, but look at charts. I mean, it's reasonable to say, how much time should I take outside of class if I want to get good at this? But I find that the people who are really the best at it are the ones who don't ask that question as much, but it's more just a natural thing that you have your head in charts or books or talks, or that you love it, that you just love it. And that sense of this is my path, that starts dawning on you as you describe. That's a great way of putting it. So there's a lot of trepidation that people have, as you know, when it comes to starting a professional astrology practice. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're coming out of school. What are some of the ways that you're making this choice? I'm gonna go for it with astrology. How did you build your practice? What are some tips or advice that you would give to other people for building your practice? How have you made it successful so far?
Yeah. It's kind of, it's not what you know, it's who you know, almost, when it comes to that kind of thing, which can sound perhaps a little bit discouraging to people who are, thinking about getting into it. But remember that, if this is what the divine wants for you to be doing, then the opportunities, those people that you need to know in order to make something happen will come. Like the opportunities, the avenues, the gateways will open, and you'll have the opportunities that you need to. For me, I was very fortunate that coming right out of college, I was already fairly immersed in the Pittsburgh New Age spirituality community. It was kind of interesting how that happened. My second to last year at college, I just very, very randomly met a bunch of like sort of heavy hitters in the Pittsburgh scene while I was still fairly young. And I lived a very interesting double life for a little while. It was the funky experience going to a bunch of sweat lodges and then going to learn about, then going to finish my prerequisites for my liberal arts degree. Doing both of those things at the same time was very confusing a little bit. But the advantage of that was that by the time I graduated, I had a network. And, I had like looked at charts for a couple people. And after a little while, I sort of, it became known in the community that I was offering readings. And, people knew who I was and, or who I am. And they, were very, very interested in talking with me more about this kind of thing, especially since, I was first just kind of doing them for free and then just offering them on donation. And there's not a lot of people or a lot of opportunity to talk with an astrologer or someone who's like really studied astrology and who is like you can just pay, $20-$30 for it. And I think it's a great gift that I was able to give to a lot of people to do that. And, and also for people in terms of timeline, this started to happen like at first, like in full swing, like into like well into your year one is when I really started offering donation-based readings and that kind of thing. And it kind of slowly but surely a ripple effect happened, and more and more people kind of got to know me, and then they would tell their friends. And then I was also especially fortunate that some of these people in the Pittsburgh New Age scene also had fairly large platforms, or they were already fairly familiar with marketing, getting a website, doing the types of things that like in a very, very mechanical way that are required in order for you to, get yourself out there in some way. Basics of, like social media campaigning and like lead generation and like really, really mundane types of stuff, more like the left brain to the right brain aspects of like the pure divination that is involved in this. And they were able to point me in the right direction so that I wasn't just a kind of sort of like Pittsburgh local town astrologer, but also, someone who could, bring in people from all over the world ultimately. And, eventually I started to like the real clincher on a practical level that got me like able to do this full time was that a couple of people were interested in paying me full price, which is like a higher price for things like electionals, like people who, some of whom were, in this business scene, the sort of like the marketing scene, were very interested in working with me consistently on like more practical uses of astrology, which, my sort of Capricorn brain really likes to do. It finds that very, very interesting. And so I got suddenly a lot of electional requests and that sort of thing. I had somebody paying me retainer for a couple of months to like just like really, really dive into that stuff for them. Looking at sometimes people would bring me like potential new hires or something, and I would look at this like basic synastry between their chart and the like the chart of the new hire and say like, here's some potential good stuff, here's some potential bad stuff. And I would also if they had the time of like I would look at the birth chart for their business as well. And like, I didn't do anything very fancy like zodiacal releasing. I don't think that there's much, it would be an interesting research area for sure to do something like that. But just like even basic transits, and it was surprising how spot on it could be just for a business. And that was really like, the final clincher that sort of like took off for me. I was able to just dive into this and slowly but surely build my platform, and here I am today.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, what I just kind of distilling some of that, the things that I would reiterate would be that it's not always what you know, but who you know. And that might sound to people like really kind of like disturbing, but it's not like nepotism or it's not like something like that. It's basically that, community is really important. That's one way of putting it, where if you have a community a spiritual community, and suddenly you show up and you say, hey, I'm doing readings for people, then a built-in audience and a built-in place where you can get some clients going. And sometimes that's going to be by donation in the beginning. Certainly that's the way I've encouraged a lot of my students to do it. And a lot of people, I think, I'm not just me, I'm not the only one who's done something like this, but just, you have to get experience. You have to start somewhere. You may not feel comfortable charging full price. So there's going to be a period of time where either do some readings for free to get experience, or you do them by donation to get experience. Where are you going to get that experience? Well, if you don't have some networks of people in your life. But it's also true, what you said is that it's also true that if this is your calling and your heart's really in it, doors are going to open and opportunities are going to come.
Yeah.
And so it's a combination of like being in the right place and meeting people and being in communities with people who find value in what you like or what you do. And if you don't have that kind of social dimension to your life, that can be a problem. Like if you're an astrologer that's totally in the closet and you have no place where you can share that part of yourself with others, it's going to be a lot harder for you to strike out of that. So sometimes social changes are a necessary part.
Yeah, for sure.
I think, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. I think that, especially for people who are like, they know that they have the bug and all these things that I'm talking about around, like, it's your passion, it's your calling, it's your dharma even. And they know they have that, but nobody knows about them, or they're just keeping it completely to themselves. I would really encourage them, if you're watching, to, do some deep breathing and put yourself out there. And you work through the fears that you have, or the anxiety that you have around showing up as an astrologer, because that is how you're going to be able to do your full-time passion and to make it a career. And I think in a deeper sense, if it's your calling, callings don't just exist for you. Like this is an act of service. It's seva. It's something that you're doing for other people. And if you truly have the gift for divination, then there's something like very important work that you can do to truly help people around you.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the important thing about the other important piece about seeing it as a service to others, and you have to put yourself out there, you have to come out of the closet at some point. We could do a whole talk about the challenges of kind of coming out of the closet with people that aren't hospitable to astrology. Maybe we'll do that in the future, but the challenges there, you do have to meet it. The other thing that's true though, is that when you go to astrology conferences, if you can, or if you meet people online, if you have teacher or a few teachers in your life, and it's not just going to classes and absorbing the information so I can do the thing, it's cultivating a relationship. Yes. The students that are the ones that I've been most active in helping in some way are the ones that have been most active in seeking my help. You know what I mean? Like, it's so simple, but it's like those students that reach out, that are really active, really engaged in their learning, they're putting themselves out there, they're wearing their heart on their sleeve about how much they love it, they're reaching out to me as a teacher. I can't help but just love those students.
Yes.
So it's so important that whether it's, one teacher or a few teachers, or even just colleagues too, who like you meet other people who are in the process of becoming an astrologer and you form a little study group. A lot of my students outside of class form small study groups. It's those relationships that you build in all these different ways that open up doors. And it's not like, well, I'm going to favor one person over another because of this or that. It's just the passion is contagious when you share it with other people in any kind of setting, communities, teachers, friends, peers, and you have that. It's like a fire that you're building, and eventually those things also, the passion opens up doors. I really like that part.
Yeah, I think that's when you have genuine enthusiasm, and like that's contagious. Like people around you will feel that. They'll say, "Oh, she has something.
Right.
She really has something," and they're drawn to that. And even if you have only done 3 readings, and you're just you're saying like, this is free, or this is for like $20, people in your community, or just people that just like see you just offering donation-based readings in a coffee shop somewhere or something, will feel that. And if you truly have the gift, then you will actually be able to help those people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the thing, is that nobody, probably probably 9 out of 10 people that you're going to meet and serve with astrology, if you put your faith in this as a calling, are going to be people that you know a lot more than about astrology, right?
Yes.
It doesn't feel that way in the beginning when you're first getting experience, but you still, average people that come to me for an astrology reading are not astrologers. More and more now, students of astrology will sit down with me for readings. But most of the time, even when you're a total rookie, you're going to know a lot more than the person sitting with you. And you have to have confidence that what you know will come across, and what you don't know, what you don't know. And you've got to let the process just take care of that on its own.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm kind of noticing a theme here for people who are on the fence, and like, trust in yourself, trust in your ability, and put yourself out there.
Yeah.
That's I think, especially for people who are really like spiritually focused. And I think there's also a natural sense of humility that a lot of people who at least are trying to do their spiritual work have. But that can turn into not an actual genuine valuation of what it is that you have to offer. And it's subtle. It's very subtle. It's like you think that you are just being humble when you're actually devaluing yourself, and that keeps you from using your gifts. And I would honestly call that a kind of ego. It's a tricksy little ego. Like, it's like, oh, I'm just a poor little me. I'm going to stay in the closet, and I don't want to like actually help anyone because I don't have anything to offer. But well, then you're not actually doing your work.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's a great point. And I also, I'm just thinking about how one of the things that I see students trying to do when they put themselves out there is to put themselves out there in a way that is over the top, an exaggerated astrological persona of some kind, or they'll use, maybe they're good looking and they're going to try to use their looks to sell it or whatever. And I don't mean to judge anyone, of course, but what I recommend to everybody when you put yourself out there is put your love of astrology and your desire to serve others, put that out there as your message, as your offering. Don't try to compensate for being new by having a stand-up routine or a sexy, glamorous filming crew, or I don't know. Do you see what I'm saying, Matthew? How do you feel about
absolutely, that? Yeah, absolutely. I completely and totally agree. And I think in this weird way, the people that come to you from that kind of thing, they won't be as excited about the genuine insight that you have to offer. They're more attracted to something a little bit more superficial.
Right.
Yeah, and that's just where some people are. There's nothing wrong with that. But like, you're gonna not just you'll probably get more clients by being genuine, and you get the right kind of client. You'll get someone who is not just looking for someone to talk to, but someone who like is coming with a genuine passion because they feel that you have something, and that they feel that you can help them.
Right.
And yeah,
genuine questions from our clients are the ones that prompt us to find genuine answers. And when you receive a genuine client with a genuine question, that's when the oracle, if you are being sincere in how you use astrology, will help you find genuine answers. And that's how you become a good astrologer. But it's so, if you're putting yourself out there in a way that's not genuine, you're going to attract the people that aren't genuine, which means the oracle won't give you genuine responses. So that part is so critical. Just be honest, be yourself, and don't try to, try not to try to create some kind of cult of personality. I mean, your personality is beautiful. We all are beautiful, but try not to overcompensate. Just present your love of astrology in service to others.
Absolutely. Let the oracle speak for itself.
Yeah, that's so nice. Well, Matthew, as we are rounding out this talk today, there's been some really good points, things that I hope that people will take in this series on becoming a professional astrologer. I'd really like you to tell everyone what you're up to. I have some links I'm going to share on the screen too as you're talking. So let's hear what you're up to these days.
Well, I'm offering readings. I do readings in hour segments and hour and a half long segments. To me, that is my primary work right now. Is the what I do for people who come through my door or who come into my Zoom room and say like, I need help me out here. That's my sort of like where a lot of my focus is going into. I have also, sometimes people will reach out to me and they'll ask me for some, like if they want me to do some speaking, or like I have a lot of people who ask me to teach introductory courses. I'm going to be starting to teach a really basic, like consistent class on Carolyn Elliott's platform Wealth on the basics of astrology. And there's been some other little spots here and there that where people ask me for an introductory class. I always post those on my site. So if you come to my site, you will see what is happening next, and I'll have a link to see how you can sign up. There's nothing like kind of for the complete public right now, but I guarantee you there will be soon. And this page that acyuta-bhava has up right now, I just recently finished like a basic introductory course on the planets and their use in sort of hermetic ritual or magic. It's it's all about the fundamentals. So I walk you through the cosmology and the philosophy. Clearly, you don't have a background in philosophy. And the philosophy is very, very important. It really does undergird a lot of the basic significations of like the planets. And, if you take acyuta-bhava's class or now, you know about the primary and secondary motion and how that informs everything too. And then it goes through, I like to get people, especially for, people who are practicing hermeticists or that kind of thing, or people who are, interested in ritual magic but find it way too complicated, giving people some like a simple, but like effective ritual. And I think people get excited and they feel empowered at the idea of being able to actually connect somehow with the spirit of the planet itself. I think that especially for people who are beginners, this idea of being able to just feel into, almost through like a container, feeling into the meaning of the planets and coming to know them that way, instead of just reading keywords. That to me is like what a lot of it is about as a practicing astrologer. You set your container and you feel into it yourself. Like it's mind blowing, like how effective that can be.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we have this Secrets of the Seven Stars. This pops up when you visit the site, a sign up for it. And you can also find the link if you go to ancientastrology.org/secrets of the seven stars.
Yeah. And I'm offering this to, if you just sign up for my newsletter, you just sign up for my email list, then you'll get it. It'll be, it'll come directly to your inbox. And I'm also offering for people who sign up to my newsletter right now, a 15% discount on any astrology readings, natal astrology readings, 60 minutes or an hour and a half.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. And you can see, you've got forecast teachings, readings, a lot of cool stuff on the website. I have to say that as someone who has had the pleasure of watching you evolve and really blossom, over the years, I'm so humbled and thankful to have played a small part in that process.
Big part.
Well, thank you. That's nice of you. But no, it's been awesome. Matthew has come out and taught for my students before, and it's just a great example of someone who just went and got it with the coursework that I teach, and beyond the coursework I teach has followed many other really good astrologers and done his research. And so props to you for just really making your dream come true. And hopefully this is testimony to everyone else out there that you can feel the gravity of Matthew's seriousness about his work, the passion, the enthusiasm, and the faith and trust that this is my calling. I'm going to do this, and doors opened. And
yes,
you have to feel that and trust it. But there's that combination along with the hard work is what does it. So thank you for being here today. Is there anything else that you want to promote at all before we say goodbye?
Oh yeah, there's one more thing. Kepler College is having me on April 17th at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, and 3 p.m. Central Time, 2 p.m. Mountain Time, to I'm doing a course or I'm doing a lecture called the Platonic Roots of Astrology, and I'm doing this is something that is deeply important to me. There's a lot of rich research that has already been done on this. They have people like Robert Schmidt, you too, acyuta-bhava as well. This is very understanding the origins of horoscopic astrology as it comes to us, and like the mythology and the spirit, almost like the spirit of the tradition. I'm going to be going into all this. There's not or they might have me on there now. I'm not sure, but
it's coming up on, what was the date again?
April 17th of 2021.
It may not be up yet, but this would be the place to go, is keplercollege.org. And if you follow keplercollege.org, and I didn't bring this up in advance, but it's going to be in here somewhere, and you're gonna see it as something you can register for, and that's a feather in your cap, man. It's a great place to teach.
Yeah, I'm very honored that they asked me on, and then they even specifically said, could you do something on astrology and practical philosophy? And I said, yes. I never thought that I would be asked to do something like that. I thought I'd have to bang down doors and say, this is important, I promise.
Right.
But yeah, it is too. This is showing, I've drawn especially a lot of implications from this talk about how astrology can stand on its own 2 feet as a philosophy. You don't need to scientize it. Right. So like you bringing in a lot of the mistakes that Ptolemy makes, and trying to understand things in terms of gravitational pulls and all that kind of stuff. It's a practical philosophy. It starts with certain philosophical premises rooted in Platonism, and it just follows in this 2 + 2 = 4. It follows. It's a derivative conclusion, and you see it working, and that's the ground for astrology.
Yeah, that's a great point. There's a new book coming out. I just heard yesterday or 2 days ago, maybe, from Charles Obert. There's a book on the Platonic philosophical roots of Western astrology. And so it is something that is catching fire right now in the community at large, which is the importance of understanding astrology originally was its own philosophy. It wasn't just some random it wasn't just some random tool that you use. It was more than a tool. It was a way of life. It was a way of looking at and interacting with the cosmos. And Matthew's going to illustrate that for you guys in this course really nicely. So I highly recommend you check that out at keplercollege.org. Well, thank you, Matthew, so much for being here today. This was really, really fun to sit down and talk and just see where you've been, and get your insights to hopefully help others out there who are going through similar things. So,
absolutely. Thanks again for having me. I really appreciate it. I always feel honored to be back on your platform.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all for listening, and stay tuned. We'll be having another guest later, probably later in January or into February. We'll have another episode on becoming a professional astrologer, and some more tips from people that I've had the pleasure to meet who have made this dream a reality. So that's what we've got for today. Thanks, everyone, and take care.